What is going on, everyone? My name is Boit, and I'm back with a video I really didn't think that I would have to make, but a couple of probably regretful choices, to say the very least. When I published the April Fool's video popped out, and I believe some people may even to this day believe that said video was an actual announcement. So I want to start this video off and say solid sorry to Age of Empires and anyone else who's been negatively affected by the video. And what we'll do is I'll go through these changes that I wrote up. I did write these changes up. There's no association with Age of Empires whatsoever. And I'm gonna, at the very least, maybe if everyone wants to listen to my opinion on this, talk about why maybe some of these changes might be good, some of these changes might be bad, if they were to add them into the Retold. But the first thing I want to start with is I really don't care what happens with Retold in terms of changes or no changes. In the end, I just want the game to be playable and a fun experience for most people to have a go at, because it is arguably, definitely in my opinion, one of the best ideas for an RTS game is this period of history, or this period of fantasy mix history kind of stuff. Anyways, we'll talk about this one first. With the houses increasing to 20 population, I don't actually think that this is that bad of an idea. I don't necessarily think it's good. I don't necessarily think it's bad. I think it would change the game as it's played now. One thing to think about is that if you have 20 houses, that means you'd have a population max limit at an equal map of 260 population each. That's 2 town centers or 3 town centers plus your 20 houses. So if you then take an opponent's town center, you'd be at 280 pop. They would be at 240 pop. The next town center would be 300 pop. So if you had 5-to-1 town centers, it would be 300 pop. And then if you had all 6 town centers, that final town center would not give you more population, which is completely fine, because you would be that's the game being won at that stage. If the max population limit would be 300, which I imagine might also be completely fine to change, considering the difference between Age of Mythology and, say, Age of Empires 2 is population for certain units. It might be a good idea to be breaking that down. There are some problems with having a really big population, like a max population thing, in that, say, 5 population units are more value than 2 population units. So the fact that they can get a ton more of those out might make the game fairly one-dimensional in the late game. But you just don't know. So we'll move on. Feel free to let me know your opinions and things like that. This next change here, Atlanteans having multiple charges of god powers, etc., etc. This one is about making Greek, Egyptian, and Norse have some sort of rechargeable god powers as well. There's actually a couple of different ways that you can actually make this work. You'd have to significantly nerf the power of all of the god powers that Greek, Egyptian, Norse have, which might take away some of the actual fun of playing Age mythology, and that the big god powers making big impact on the game is actually a really, really cool thing. But then again, only being able to use it once is potentially not so much of a good thing. There are a ton of different ways to go about changing this. I personally, I don't think that this would be a step in the right direction for Age of Mythology. I think maybe the Atlantean change was a step in the wrong direction, giving multiple uses of god powers. I would rather see god powers more crazy strong than have more weak god powers, if you will. But that's, again, if you want to make that change, it would change the game, and you'd have to learn and work out how to play in that situation. There'd have to be a lot of balancing going on. I imagine that would happen in the first couple of months, first 6 months of Age of Mythology Retold, and all this stuff would get relatively well fixed up fairly quickly. The next one is about the extra units that are added in Tale of the Dragon. I I genuinely believe these are all poorly designed. I have a video on it already, which I can link in the description box below. But these changes here, adding in a basically a unique hero, because that's what it would be, whether or not it's Arcanto, Summon, or Regular Leaf Caster, it's a unique hero, does kind of take away from the identity of Greek, where Greek is like, I get 4 unique heroes and now everyone else gets a unique hero. How's that fair? But that being said, it wouldn't really break the game at all. It wouldn't change much. I think Egyptian would have a lot of fun with the mana. I think Norse would really, really benefit from having Reg and Leaf, and some of the more broken strategy against Norse would end up being less broken, and you could actually defend against some stuff much easier. And instead of, especially at the low levels, while maybe at the top level Norse doesn't really need Reg and Leaf, at the low level it's definitely a problem. And Atlantean having Caster, I think Atlantean having some help in the hero department would actually go a long way to helping them out as well in certain situations, especially like Gaia and things like that, but against like mass myth units. But in the end, this change here, if you want to, I don't think it would be a bad change. I just probably wouldn't do it if I was in charge. This is clearly where the jokes start coming in a little bit more obviously, but it is what it is. Next part here, we get this thing here. So some of these changes are actually really, I would really appreciate. So the Katoskopos no longer having an attack is something that I think is both accurate and necessary. I think the Katoskopos having 5.5 speed in the classical age is something, or in the archaic age, excuse me, and having an attack is something that is just incredibly annoying to play against. And I think it's annoying for everyone. And I don't see anything other than its annoyance being, it doesn't unbalance the game, doesn't break the game at all, having the Katoskopos have an attack. There are a couple of things that do cause some serious problems, which is a Katoskopos harassing a pharaoh or a priest on a granary, which is there's no really counter to that. So the simple solution is to just get rid of the attack, and the Katoskopos is just simply a scout. There's many other units in the game which don't have an attack. Look at the Oracle, look at the Pegasus. So not having an attack would be a good step, a step in the right direction. I think this could also be added to the Ulfsark as well, and the Priest. So in the Archaic Age, Ulfsark and Priest could have 0 attack, and then in the Classical Age, they could have their normal attack restored. And I think that would be completely fine as well to remove that kind of annoyance in the Archaic Age, just to as a thing. Next one here, Egyptian players rock will no longer carry siege or myth units. This is a bit of a meme because in reality, the rock right now is in a place where you aren't getting huge amounts of value out of this anyways. But the rock against Norse players, for example, is way too strong in a lot of different situations, especially when you start incorporating catapults into the rock. Less so myth units, but you can defend against that relatively easily by defending your resources. But yeah, the Egyptian players, this one, you could arguably just take carries, remove the carry of siege, and I think everyone would rejoice, and Egyptian would probably not complain too badly about that one. The myth units would be probably a step too far. Norse no longer having access to walls is obviously a meme. It is mostly a comment on the fact that Norse players in the late game can literally wall the entire map using Ulfsark spam, and it's very tough to stop. But this is not really something that should ever be considered seriously, in my opinion. The next one's actually kind of more of a nuanced thing. Yes, it shouldn't happen, but Atlantean citizens having 3 population and being as how you say it, it's not a fair situation to be in. If you're playing as a Greek and you have to control like 3 or 4 times the amount of villages that the Atlantean player has to control, it ends up being a little bit unfair, just in terms of attention, macro, all that other stuff. So there is a nice middle ground with this, where instead of this being 1 population, it could be 2 population. It could be something in the vicinity of, I don't know, 60 food and 10 wood as a bit of a middle ground. That's just a random number I pulled out of my butthole, but the 60 food, 10 wood, like something like this could be a way to go with the Atlantean citizens. Just to, you increase the total amount of citizen that you can try, and you reduce the gather rate down to something that is fair, and you could possibly go this way. Gaia Lush is this change here is just me being silly. Quite clearly, Gaia Lush, it's not really that broken. It's just annoying, and it's part of the Gaia's identity, is that the buildings can get prevented. There are a lot of interesting ways you could go with Gaia Lush that are not just simply stealing from Zerg, from StarCraft 2, with the creep adding speed, but things like your opponent's units slow down. You can't build on it, whatever. You build faster on your Lush, all these kind of things. There's lots of different ways you could approach this to remove the annoyance of a Gaia player putting an economic guild on a town center, for example. This next one is more of a bug fix than anything. I just threw this in, but this is definitely should be in Retold. If you can make Gaia Forest not be able to be cast near a gold mine or around town center, that would fix a lot of problems that Gaia on a ladder game where there is nothing but rating points on the line. You see this on Extended Edition quite a lot. If you watch like John Arbiter's stream, for example, he plays Ra on Extended Edition, and quite often a Gaia player will come in and click Gaia Forest on his gold mine, and it's it is actually not counterable in a way, but you can still win those games, but it just really ruins the time for everyone. It's a bad mechanic and really should go. China, this is a meme here. I do want this part of it. China is getting I would really like China to be included in Retold, as if it was reworked and it was brought up to the level of design that, say, Greek, Atlantean, any of the original civilizations had. So, for example, one thing that could happen with China is you could change the way the favor system worked. I have suggested this before, where the favor could be, instead of having 10 gardens, you have 1 garden. So you have to build that 1 garden. You can make that cost whatever you feel is appropriate. And inside of that garden, you can upgrade technologies to boost your garden's favor gather rate. What this does is it gives a building which your opponent can target to stop them getting favor, and reset all of those resources that one spent. I feel like it's a rewarding thing to attack that, and it's a rewarding thing to defend that. You could also tie unique upgrades in that garden to boost, I don't know, XYZ, just like resource over here, maybe give extra favor plus an extra boost to food, extra favor plus a boost to wood, extra favor plus a boost to gold. These kind of things would be an interesting way to go with China. In terms of the units, I do not think that a reverse counter system is the way to go with China. I think that it is confusing, and you don't want to. It's just confusing. You can get used to it for sure, but in terms of making a civilization be accepted in Age of Mythology, I think that not everyone, but the vast majority of players get angry when China shows up in their game, and that should be at the forefront of designing a civilization, that it's not annoying to play against, that you don't have to like rethink the entire way the game works in order to like counter something. Next one is the naval system. I actually thought that this is actually a half decent idea. I think that there should be more of a focus on myth units on the water. I think that every single god should have a god path where they can get myth units out. So, for example, if you play as Norse, you should be able to go through like Forseti or Freya or one of them two. Like what's a god? Maybe you have to have two gods which get an extra myth unit. So if you play as Thor and you have Freya and Forseti. In Forseti, you could have just a myth unit, which is like a ranged myth unit, throws a spear or something. I don't know. Look into the lore or whatever, and then you look at the at Freya, and you could have like a fast, speedy unit on the melee unit on the water as an option, and then everyone of the Norse gods in the classical age would have access to a myth unit. And then also when you go to the mythic age, you have Njord, so you don't need to really add one there. Everyone has actually maybe you have to add one to say Skadi or something, and then or maybe you have to add one to Skadi, and then you add one to you got Fimbulwinter, so you don't have to add one to anyone because you got Jormungandr Delver there. As for this other part here, I do think that I think one of the reasons why Age of Empires suffers a little bit when it comes onto water maps is the fact that water maps take away from building area. You can't build on water, and it's a base building game, and I think that is a pretty core aspect of it. You can't defend your fish, for example. It's quite hard to defend your fish with, like, normally you just throw up a wall and you're all good. So having the idea of having like a defensive buildings or something is actually not too insane. I think it would be I'm not sure what you would be able to put on the water to make this happen, but it might be an interesting something to think about in the end. But in the end, I think that if you just go down the way of having some hero naval ships and myth units on the water, you would improve the water in the end of the day after some balancing was done. The next change, or the next suggestion, or whatever I said here, is about the Titans. And I think that this change is actually really, really good. I think this is 100% something that should be done, whether or not it does happen or not. And it's that the Titans should all be different. They should all be different. Now, whether or not these are the changes that you actually would go for or not, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want, but they should all be different in some way. The problems come in with balancing, but you can very easily balance these things so that they can fight each other. For example, like Osiris here, having the chain lightning, having a ranged attack would be very strong because you could hit and run. But if you have Cerberus here being able to catch up to the Osiris, you could figure out a way that if the Titans were to click onto each other, that in the end of the day they would both kill each other if they were to attack and not retreat at all. And I think that would keep the same thing there. Yeah, I think some of this is a little bit memey, like Prometheus here. Probably not a good way to make Prometheus. Maybe you could find a different special ability or special feature for Atlantean. I think that if you do continue with China, having access to several different Titans is actually Titans is actually a really good idea. I think that is something that could be interesting, having a whole bunch of different dragons. Instead of having a Titan, you have a dragon. It flies low on the ground. You can attack it by melee units, so no problem, but it flies and hovers. I think that would be a great idea. And that these are, and you could very, very easily make all of these such that, one would probably end up get picked all the time at top level. You could try and balance it so there could be a couple of different decisions to be made when you pick them, but in the end, most of the time, it's just which one's the best. But I think it would be a good idea for the casual gamers and things like that to have a whole bunch of different options there. This next one here, the quick search ladder. I actually think having some different ladders might be a good idea, might not be a good idea. Definitely having a team game ladder is something that would be very much appreciated. I think we missed that severely in Age Mythology. And finally, this final thing is the big meme where I'm having a jab at everyone saying that auto queue is necessary in an RTS game for reasons. And I say, well, if you want your macro to be automated, why not make your micro automated? I don't think that micro should be automated in the slightest. I think it's a very, very skillful thing to do, but I also still am on the side of macro is actually a skill, and the fact that we take that away with auto queue is, at least from a competitive standpoint, it's not a good thing. From a casual standpoint, and if this game does end up just being a casual game, which it very well might be, auto queue is a fantastic feature for that. But again, I think leave that up to the hands of the developers, to the direction they want to take Age Mythology in. Anyways, I hope I didn't annoy too many people too much with my April Fool's video. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I might do an April Fool's video again, but I'll be much smarter about it. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any other ideas for Retold that you think might be good, definitely leave it in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next one.